I've got a cold, as you might be able to hear, which sucks. But I've been using it to practice my Barry White. My moon, my guiding star. Anyway, I've checked, and it turns out that you can't catch a cold from watching somebody with a cold on YouTube. So I'll crack on. Today's video is brought to you by Lumix. And while I'm not really going to talk about cameras today, I'm going to talk more about photography. I will sort of link it in with. Doesn't matter. Right, so basically, I get asked a lot how people should approach learning photography, and in particular, who they should listen to. And I think the reason I get asked that a lot is because I do things quite differently to a lot of other people, particularly on YouTube. So, for instance, I don't like using a tripod, I don't like shooting at golden hour, I don't like using filters, I don't like long exposures, I don't like hanging around for hours for shots. I'd rather take 100 or 200 photos a day as opposed to 1 or 2. I just work very differently to a lot of the other people who have channels on YouTube doing the kind of photography outdoors in hills and stuff that I do. So I think I get asked, for example, whether people need a tripod or whether they don't because they see other people using them and not me and all that kind of stuff. And I think the hang-up, the main problem that people have when they're considering who they should listen to when it comes to photography is that people approach learning photography in the same way that they would approach learning how to use a camera, which I suspect in many cases is a process of looking at the manual for a day or two, maybe with a coffee or a beer, working through the menus on your camera at the same time and just generally getting familiar with it. Unless you're like me, in which case you open the box to the camera and find this, just sort of throw it in the bin and guess for about 3 weeks because that's more fun. I need that actually. Spanish, also Spanish. It's a bit like learning Spanish, which I'm doing at the moment. I mean, I'm in the very, 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 very early stages of learning Spanish. So if you leave a Spanish comment, for example, I won't be able to read it. I'll just have to use Google Translate and probably I'll reply sí. Yo hablo muy poco español. Lo siento. Told you. And the difference between learning how to use a camera and learning how to speak Spanish is that there's a very definite sort of A to B trajectory. Like you either know how to take a photo with a camera in, say, I don't know, 16:9 aspect ratio with a high shutter speed, all that stuff. You know how to operate the camera or you don't. And with Spanish, like you know how to order a seafood platter in a restaurant or you don't, or you get sprouts. And with photography, it's not like that at all because it's not a case of you can take photos or you can't. Like as long as you can press a button on your phone, for example, then you've taken a photo. And nobody can really tell you whether that's a good or bad photo because it's all subjective. It's an art at the end of the day. There's no right and wrong in the way that there is a right way to speak a language and a right way to operate a camera. And so it becomes a reasonable question as to how do you learn photography when there's no like end goal? Like how do you get to a point where you're better? And who do you listen to do that? And my answer is broadly this. I watch lots of YouTube channels, for example, who work in the way that I described before. So with like tripods and filters and long exposures and all the stuff that's, I'd say, not in line with my particular tastes in photography. And the reason I do that is because I recognized a while ago that if I want original output, which is to say that I want my photos to be as unique as possible, I want them to be mine. If I want that, then I also need my input, which is my inspiration and learning. I also need that stuff to be unique. And since you can't really be the only person to watch certain resources, like you can't be the only person to watch a particular YouTube video or a really particular book or whatever, you need like a huge mix of stuff which becomes different to everybody else's mix of inspiration and content and learning, so that mix of stuff becomes your unique blend of inspiration and kind of insight into the way that you should do things. I don't particularly know if that makes sense or not, to be honest. Think of it like a cocktail. Like if somebody asked me to create a unique cocktail, the way I'd approach that is I'd put as many ingredients in as I could possibly manage. And the reason I do that is because the chances are that nobody else has created a cocktail with all those ingredients at the same quantity. So therefore I stand the most chance of having like a unique cocktail. I'm just trying to think what I'd put in it. Probably gin, whiskey, rum, vodka, Baileys. I mean, it'd be a disgusting cocktail and lethal, actually, at that rate. But if we ever meet, don't let me make you a cocktail. That wouldn't be. Cinnamon is in a lot of good cocktails. But yeah, with that approach, I think I'd create something that was unique. And it's kind of the same with how I try to approach my sources of inspiration and learning. I like to kind of pick at things from lots of different places, take on what I agree with, discard what I don't, and then I end up with a blend or a bucket of stuff that becomes my source of inspiration. And that's why I watch channels like Thomas Heaton's, for example. So he will shoot in a very different way to how I shoot, but I feel inspired to go out to particular places when I see him shooting there. Similar story when I watch Sean Tucker's channel or Jamie Windsor's. Like, they are brilliant at showing other people's work and being insightful about other people's work in a way that makes me want to go and check out other people and expand my kind of portfolio of inspiration, or my bucket of inspiration, that hopefully, again, makes my work unique. In fact, talking about making my work unique, the biggest compliment I can get for one of my photos is when people say to me, I knew that image was yours before I knew it was yours. Like if they leave a comment on Instagram or something and say they knew that image was one of mine before they saw who'd posted it. That's the biggest compliment, because I think today, if you can kind of craft out your own unique style, when every man and his dog and woman and her dog and child and their dog has a phone or takes pictures, if you can craft out a unique style, then I think that bodes very well for your art. And so that's the biggest compliment for me. And to get to that point, I believe you have to have a unique blend of inspiration and learning. So I basically try and take as much stuff as possible, and like I say, take in what I like, discard what I don't from those things, and hopefully that gives me a good set of resources to create unique stuff. And it doesn't just have to be photography stuff either. Like some of the best places that I've taken photos, I read about before I ever saw them. The first time that I got really excited about light in photography and shadows and the power of those things, I was watching a football match and there were 4 floodlights on the players. So each of the players had 4 shadows, and I just thought that was awesome. The first time I got excited about the prospect of shooting photos in autumn was when I was playing golf. That's not completely random. It was autumn when I was playing golf and the trees looked lovely and stuff. And I thought, oh, it'd be nice to take photos of that. Oh, maybe I should get into photography. So yeah, cast your net very wide when you're considering who to listen to, what to read, who to watch, what photos to look at. Cast your net as wide as you can to draw inspiration from as many places as possible. And that hopefully will help give your stuff a unique twist. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this week. This wasn't the video I was going to make, but since I've been sort of bedridden for most of the week, I thought this worked quite well. Answer a question I'm asked a lot. And hopefully next week I'll not sound like Barry White, although I will miss that. Also, thank you very much once again to Lumix for their continued support of this channel. I must say, along with people telling me about how they recognise my images before knowing they're my images, the other thing that I just love hearing is people saying that they've bought into Lumix cameras, or they've bought a couple of Lumix lenses, or they're into the Micro Four Thirds system because of something that they've watched on my channel, or because of what I've spoken about. It's such a nice thing to hear, because I've long thought that Lumix and Micro Four Thirds and that set of equipment is really underrated for lots of different applications within photography and video. And so to see people getting into this stuff is where it warms my heart, to be honest, because I think, as I say, it really is underrated and awesome. And yeah, I'm just very proud to be an ambassador of Lumix, so it's great that so many of you are enjoying their stuff. So yeah, I'll see you next time, when I imagine I'll sound a little bit less manly, to be honest. And until then, enjoy your photos and enjoy taking inspiration from everywhere you can possibly find it. Cheers.